Hello and welcome to the podcast video tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll walk you through the steps in creating your own podcast to market your brand and content. First off, what is a podcast? A podcast is most commonly known as Internet radio on demand. It usually comprises of a series of episodes of spoken audio which is often catered towards a specific niche or theme. It is different from traditional radio as it showcases original content and not just a repurpose of the radio's content. Podcasts are readily available online and you're able to subscribe to a podcast and get weekly updates of new episodes. This can be done via the podcast app on your phone, or you can even browse the podcast sites via desktop. You may listen to the podcast anywhere when you have downloaded the podcast series. How to start your own podcast? Starting up your own podcast is not impossible, but it does take some time for beginners. Bear in mind that it's not just simply audio recordings. You need to be committed and consistent in order to generate a loyal following, as well as producing valuable content. In order to produce quality content, you also need suitable equipment to start your podcast. The first equipment you need is a good quality microphone. This is important as you would want to produce crystal clear audio. Therefore, I recommend the Blue Yeti microphone. The Blue Yeti's quality is rich for its cost as compared to other microphones available out there. However, if you're just starting out, any microphone at hand would do, but make sure you're able to produce good audio. The second most important equipment is a computer. Any Windows computer or Mac would work fine to record, edit, and upload your audio recordings. The third equipment you need is an audio editing software. For beginners, I recommend Audacity as it is a free open source program. There are other options to choose from out there, but the license fees can get quite costly. When you have all the suitable equipment at hand and you've recorded your audio, you will then need to search for a place to host your podcasts. This step is crucial as it enables your podcast to be showcased on directories and apps. Where can you host your podcasts? There are a number of places to host your podcast. 1. SoundCloud. You can host your podcast on SoundCloud for free. The good thing about SoundCloud is that you can publish your audio almost instantly on the site itself. This makes it easy for you to share your podcast on various social media platforms. 2. Podbean. Podbean provides multiple platforms for hosting. The service also has its own iOS and Android app for listing. 3. Podomatic. This site is very user-friendly and offers free hosting with a sufficient bandwidth and storage for podcast beginners. There's also a pro option that allows you more bandwidth. 4. Amazon S3. Amazon S3 does offer a free plan, but your storage is quite limited. They offer a paid service, which is dependent on the storage and bandwidth you use. When you have hosted your podcast, you can now search for directories to get your podcast listed on. There are various platforms where you can get your podcast listed. However, most podcasters will recommend that you get listed on iTunes. iTunes is the most popular directory and has the largest reach as compared to the other directories. Welcome back. In this video tutorial, I'll walk you through the 5 tips to create compelling podcasts. There are 5 tips to produce unique, quality audio content. 1. Focus on your niche. 2. Choose a strong name. 3. Create a cover image. 4. Insert theme music. 5. Add podcast chapters. Firstly, focus on your niche. As you may know, there are various existing podcasts out there. However, you do not need to create an entirely new podcast even though most of the topics are already covered. All you need to do is repurpose and have your own spin of the topics. Make sure you identify your niche as well as your audience. It's better to be as specific and clear as possible on what you want to venture into. For instance, if you choose to create a podcast on internet marketing, you may focus your podcast on how to be a successful internet marketer. The second tip is to choose a strong name for your podcast. The name you choose for your podcast is important as your audience will search for your podcast using it. It also reflects exactly what your podcast is about. Thirdly, you need to create a cover image for your podcast. This is the first thing your audience will see once they come across your podcast. Therefore, it must be captivating enough to attract their attention. An image is also required if you wish to list your podcast on the iTunes directory. Make sure that your podcast cover is also related to your content. The fourth tip is to insert theme music. This will make your podcast more memorable to your listeners. You may access free tunes for your podcast on sites like Free Music Archive and Vimeo's Music Store. The fifth tip is to add podcast chapters. This gives your users more control on what they choose to listen to. They can skip or select segments that they choose to listen to. They work like chapters in a book. When arranging your podcast in chapters, it represents your podcast in a more organized manner. Welcome back. In this video tutorial, you'll learn how to record your podcast using Audacity. The first step is to install and set up Audacity. Audacity is a great software for beginners. You can download Audacity 2.1.3 via audacityteam.org. When you have installed Audacity, you will now need to download and install the Lame MP3 encoder to export your recorded audio files to MP3 later on. The next step is to connect your microphone to your device. Check if the software recognizes your microphone by clicking on the drop-down menu next to the small microphone icon. If you can see your mic, select it. On the top left corner, you can see the pause, play, stop, skip back, and skip forward, as well as the record buttons. To ensure that everything is functioning properly, click the record button and record yourself for a few seconds. Now you can play back your recording to ensure that everything is working and sounds good. The next step is to start recording your podcast. Recording via Audacity is quite straightforward. Just click the recording button and record your audio. When you're done recording, you need to save the file in an MP3 format. To do this, go to File, then Export Audio. Next, select MP3 files in the Save as Type drop-down menu. You then name your file and save it to your desktop. Open your saved MP3 file and try playing it on your preferred MP3 player. This is to ensure your recorded audio is working. As mentioned in the first chapter of this video tutorial, when you have recorded your podcast, you would need to search for a place to host your podcast so it will reach your targeted audience. There are various platforms to host your podcast, such as SoundCloud, Podbean, Amazon S3, Podomatic, and so on. However, for this tutorial, we will only be focusing on SoundCloud as it is user-friendly, especially for beginners. The first step is to sign up for a SoundCloud account. All you need to do is sign up by using an active email address. Remember to use the name of your podcast as the name that displays on your profile. A confirmation email will be sent to you and you can then proceed using SoundCloud. The second step is to complete your profile information. Upload your profile image, add a description of your podcast to your profile's bio, which will then be used as your RSS feed description. In the links section, add links of your social media accounts. The next step is to adjust your content settings. On the Settings page, click the Content tab. You then need to choose a category for your podcast. There will be various categories to choose from and select what is related to your content. Then click the Contains Explicit Content box if applicable. Select the Include in RSS feed. You would also want to select Creative Commons license. This will protect your content. Now you can proceed to upload your audio file by checking on Upload on the top right of the page. The upload may take a while depending on the size of your audio file. When you have uploaded your file, you need to fill in the details of the file. This will be your podcast. You would also need to upload an image representing your podcast. When you're done, click Save. Your podcast is now officially published and your RSS feed is ready to be submitted to your preferred podcasting directories, such as iTunes and Stitcher. To submit podcast to iTunes, you need to head back to your settings page and click Content. Copy your RSS feed URL and follow the submission instructions on how to submit your feed to your preferred directory. You are now good to go.